So a couple of weeks ago, I got a text from my buddy David, and he was like, "Hey Mike, I'm going to be in town doing some session work, making some videos. I got a little bit of time afterwards. You want to hang out? Oh, and one more thing. I want to show you this guitar." I was like, "Sick, that sounds awesome." I hadn't seen this dude for a couple months since NAMM, and also for the first time in a while, I was going to get to see a guitar that I had never encountered or really ever heard of. I mean, we should have a great time. So I go to pick him up from downtown. We get back here, we're playing through some stuff, we're chatting, just having a good time. And finally, he opens up this black case, takes out this white Strat style guitar with the name Tyler just plastered all over the headstock. And I had never seen anything like it. Not only was it a completely unique finish on the body, but it had more knobs and switches than I had ever seen on a guitar. I'm talking a mid boost, a button for series, a million others that I can't even remember. Basically anything a player would need was on this one guitar. So we plug in through the quad cortex and he's messing with each individual knob as he's playing through this thing. I'm recording on video, and with every single lick I'm hearing, my jaw is absolutely dropping with this man's playing. And eventually, after he's done playing a few more licks, I ask him, "Can I try this thing out?" And he's like, "Of course, sure, man." So I take the guitar from him and I start playing a few licks, and I realize that for the first time in a while, I am playing a guitar that I am genuinely confused by. I mean, it was like I didn't even know where to start. And so I begin by asking questions about what each of the individual knobs and switches actually do. And it begins to click with me more and more by the second, the actual purpose of a guitar like this. You see, a lot of guitars sound good, and this was definitely one of them, but this thing was a true session player's guitar. Guys like Dan Huff, Michael Landau, David Kim, these are guys who are doing serious session work and need a guitar that can do everything in a pinch. Potentially different genres and styles and tones, maybe even with minuscule adjustments within them. And it was in that moment that I felt like even though I didn't understand the ins and outs of every knob on that particular guitar, I felt like I understood the why behind it. So I keep playing this thing for about 15 minutes. I eventually hand it back to him. He puts it back in the case, and then I drive him back to his Airbnb. And as we get back to the house, I'm looking through the footage and hearing these tones back for the first time. And outside of just marveling at my buddies playing, there's one thought that kind of keeps bouncing around my head, like consistently. All I kept thinking was, man, this guitar right here, well, I've never seen anything like it. And that's what I kept thinking, like the idea of this guitar whose sole purpose was extreme versatility. And I also started thinking, what would be the closest thing that I've ever experienced to this? And all of a sudden, it kind of just hit me. You see, about a year ago, I was thinking about Strat alternatives because I wanted to try something different. I had experienced PRS and GNL and Sire, but only on one or two occasions had I taken the time to really experience one of the more hyper modern Strats. And I think I had a vague idea of what I wanted. I'd seen a lot of my favorite guys lean heavily into the Ibanez game over the years, especially once I started listening to artists like Satriani and Polyphia. But very few of their solid bodies had really hit me until I saw just one in particular, the Ibanez Prestige. And there was just something about the look of this guitar. It was so very clearly inspired by the Strat, but in a unique way where it never really lost that Ibanez vibe. It actually reminded me a lot of an old Blade Strat from the 90s that my buddy had picked up a few years ago when I went to visit him in Pennsylvania. And when I started playing it, it was more than just that it sounded good. It was like, for a Strat, this also felt sort of refreshing. So this is the guitar, and its official name is the Ibanez AZ2204, and I'd actually just restrung it a couple weeks before David came through to show me the James Tyler. But even before we started messing with the Tyler, it really did cross my mind just how different this thing actually was from basically all of the other Strats that I had played before, and especially the Fenders. Because at first glance, the guitar was pretty simple: one volume, one tone, HSS configuration. Nothing too different from anything that I had played on a pretty regular basis, and it was essentially the same way with a lot of the ergonomic choices. Compound radius, Seymour Duncan's, coming off a lot like I had heard that something like the American Ultras were doing. But it wasn't until I noticed this small switch in between the volume and the tone knob that I realized just how different this guitar was going to be than anything that I'd played before at that time. So let's plug this thing in and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Setup is really simple today. We're going to be going through the quad cortex. David taught me like 2 or 3 very simple tricks that I think could kind of change things. So let's see what happens. So this guy right here is called the alter switch, and it's a feature that kept popping into my head after I had played that Tyler, because it was the first thing that I really experienced on this guitar that I knew made it different from all of the other Strat copies that I'd played before. Now, when I first started playing this, I was pretty sure I knew exactly what it was going to be about. HSS is my favorite configuration on a Strat, and usually they have some sort of push-pull that corresponds with switching between the single coil and the humbucker and the bridge, and this seemed to be no different. Then you start playing it in the bridge position, switching it back and forth, and your ear realizes that nothing actually changes. But it isn't until you actually start looking at the diagram and doing more research that you realize the coil split, it's so much more than that. It actually altered every single other position on the guitar in a way that I had never seen before, and all sort of started with the neck position. Essentially what I found out was that when the alter position is facing away from the neck, everything functions as you think it normally would. It's a pretty stratty sound, but when you push the switch towards the neck, it puts these two pickups in series and you get like the fat sort of neck humbucker type of sound. Now, pickups in series are one thing, but once I took it to the 4 position, that's where the combination started to get way more foreign to me at the time. Because that's when you get the 2 outer coils, and prior to getting this last year, I'd never even thought of that or knew what that was supposed to sound like. Now, position 3 was probably my favorite part of all of this because, again, we're putting these 2 pickups in series, but this time adding the bridge humbucker, so it almost works like the middle position of something like a Les Paul or a 2 humbucker guitar with a 3-way. And it's my favorite because I realized that if you keep it in the altered position, you can almost treat this as an HH guitar with that in-between position. If you never go to the 4 and the 2, it's almost like a double humbucker super strat, and if you go to those positions, it's kind of like the Strandberg. It made this guitar like 3 different guitars in one. Now, the 2 position was probably my least favorite of the alter. It's just the inner coil of the humbucker, which is fine, but for my personal playing, I always want the HSS for a reason, but it kind of is just another sound to add in the arsenal. So at the end of the day, what did we learn? And I think it's very simple in this case. A lot of times when I'm dealing with a new type of guitar, one of my main thoughts is, I wonder how much I'll like this guitar, or if I'll like it in the same way a year from now. And one of the newer things I've been thinking about is asking a completely different question, which specifically applies to guitars like this that are ultra versatile or have these ultra switch or coil splits, which is, how will I use this guitar a year from now? What new tricks will I find with the pickup variations? How will I view the coil split? What will I like? How will I utilize it live versus in the studio? These are a lot of questions that are coming up more and more, and I think the Ibanez Prestige is like the perfect place to answer that, because initially this guitar felt so intimidating, which is that ultra switch, and it felt like I was just trying to keep my head above water with discovering everything one variation at a time. But the more I used it specifically more recently, I feel like I've gotten a much better understanding of its potential full capabilities. But I don't think it matters what I think about this guitar. What matters is what you think about it. So please let me know, have you played an Ibanez Prestige? Do you like Ibanez guitars? What's your favorite in the lineup? Let me know in the comments. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I had been meaning to make a follow-up to the Ibanez video for a while, and I think having played the James Tyler and seeing how versatile that was and how people approached that just really opened up the floodgates for like the creative juices when it came to this. But if you want to know anything more about the Ibanez Prestige, I got it from the homies at Sweetwater. The links will be in the description. Make sure to check them out. It's one of the best ways to support the channel, if that's something you want to do, or if you're just curious about any of the gear that I use in this video, amps, pedals, heck, even the camera, it'll all be listed below. Thank you so much to all of my patrons. There's some extra exclusive content on there if you want to join the community. Like and subscribe if you had a good time. Most importantly, most important of all, have a fantastic night.